The hero's journey. Who doesn't like a good book, movie, show, or in this case a video game, in which you follow your favorite character up and over their arc to a satisfying conclusion? Watching Michael Corleone get pulled into a world of organized crime in order to fill the shoes left behind by his father's legacy, just to eventually break free from a life of violence and corruption. HBO has a plethora of shows with great character arcs. Sans Game of Thrones, thank you so much, Dave and Dan. But how about Kevin Garvey's arc in The Leftovers? Has anybody seen that show? He starts off as an emotionally bankrupt police chief in a world where 2% of the Earth's population just fucking vanishes overnight. In the 3 seasons, we follow him on a journey to self-absolution, coming to grips with his ever-declining mental state, and the ability to accept the anomaly as an unexplainable, unchangeable event that he'll never be able to fix. It's utterly brilliant. Now, I know I just shit on Game of Thrones, but for my book lovers out there, has anybody read George R. R. Martin's 3-part novella series, The Tales of Dunk and Egg? If not, you definitely have to check it out, but follow me along. Duncan is a young and unusually large squire for a hedge knight who never knew his parents or anything but the simple life of a traveling mercenary. That is, until he meets a young bald-headed boy named Egg, who sticks to his side like glue. It's much like a Shrek and Donkey thing going. However, when it's discovered that Egg is actually Aegon Targaryen, fifth in line for the Iron Throne, Dunk is immediately thrown into the role of mentor by order of the king, so his son could see what the common folk is like if ever he was to rule. Just like that, a shy, nervous, and clumsy Duncan goes from an absolute nobody to the traveling role model and protector to one of the most important people in the Seven Kingdoms. We watch him grow from a stumbling, bumbling oaf in Book 1 to one of the most respected, confident, prolific, and badass knights in the entire series by Book 3. It is nothing more than satisfying. Now, I can hear all of you out there saying, what the hell does it have to do with the topic of the video, Alex? Get on with it, you HBO-obsessed Game of Thrones fanboy. Well, listen, I hear you, and first off, ouch, okay? But secondly, welcome back to another video, guys. My name is Muddy88, aka AJ from Queens, and today, your honor and fellow esteemed YouTube jurors, allow me to state my case for my defendant and how Abby Anderson, yes, the 9-iron-wielding one-man battle from Seattle, self-proclaimed earthquake from Salt Lake, the girl that puts the bra in Santa Barbara, has a significantly better arc than our beloved Ellie in Part 2. Allow me to explain. You see, our two competing characters are not only quite alike, but they're also on the same exact journey to redemption. It just so happens that where Ellie leaves us wondering how she's going to find said redemption by game end, Abby has already found it. Let me explain by comparing the two similar arcs, okay? Number 1, both characters had their father/father figures murdered in cold blood. Number 2, both characters became absolute shells of their former selves after the loss. Number 3, both characters seek revenge as their solution to cope with the loss. And number 4, both characters realize that revenge didn't satisfy their emotional emptiness. However, where Ellie's story ends at number 4, Abby's just picks up there in the beginning act. After a short prologue where it's revealed that Joel murdered Abby's father, we're awakened by our good old friend Manny to an absolute panic. Much like Joel, and yes, his arc is somewhat juxtaposed against Abby's as well, but we'll get there. Abby is in a state of mental and emotional despair, so much so that she mumbles in her sleep and wakes up gasping for air. Make you think of anybody? She's haunted by something deep inside her psyche, and the 2 times we peek into her head, it becomes quite evident that, even after serving cold, hard, murderous justice, she can't escape the need for closure. In other words, revenge didn't do shit in helping her cope with her grief, and rightfully so. At the end of the day, an eye for an eye only leads to 2 partially blind people in equal despair. But anyway, continuing on. As Act 1 goes forth, we see Abby in her truest post-Jackson form. She's super insecure, very aggressive, and pretty much super awkward towards a pregnant Mel as well, which, okay, I kinda understand. But she's completely void of emotion and fully bought into the WLF cause. As far as she's concerned, she's cognitively replaced her grief with hatred towards the other in their world, which in this case is the Seraphite cause. After a brief campaign where we meet fellow WLF comrades discussing battle strategy and receiving medical attention, we come to discover from Top G Isaac that Owen, Abby's former lover, has gone AWOL. Oh, and one little other thing. He went AWOL after supposedly killing a fellow friend/soldier to protect the enemy. In utter disbelief, Abby sets out on the mission to find and confront Owen, who she knows in her heart of hearts couldn't have done what the rumors have said. And she knows exactly where to find him. At the aquarium. You see, both the aquarium and Owen are major symbolic representation of Abby's earlier, more innocent days, when the obsession of revenge we see so blatantly throughout Ellie in this game has yet to take full grasp of her. Much like the guitar spiritually connects Ellie to Joel, Owen is the closest connection Abby has to her father. What little is known about Jerry Anderson and the few moments we spend with him in the introduction seem to point out how he was an involved, loving, and caring father. Just thrusted in an immense role of protecting and guiding a group bent on saving humanity. That old chestnut. And when we finally make our way to Owen, hidden in the sailboat, docked at the aquarium, a side of him we've never seen rears his head. Owen is tired, emotionally drained, on the brink of self-destruction. He feels exactly how Abby feels.
We were cleaning out a small camp. It's just a couple scars, and hit this one on the head hard. And he goes down, and his weapon's right there. And he doesn't go for it. Instead, he turns to me. And he's old and tired. He was just ready. I've killed a lot of scars. And, fucking guy. I couldn't do it. Of course, Danny gets in my fucking face about it. I told him I'm done. He can do it himself if he wants. And he points his fucking gun at me. So I grab it, and then... First, I didn't even know which one of us was shot.
You defended yourself.
Stop.
I can fix this. I'll talk to Isaac.
I am tired, Abby. I don't want to fight over land that I don't give a fuck about anymore.
And although she tries denying it at first, the two almost come to blows before they realize how much they mean to each other. Thus, for the first time in this game, Abby becomes vulnerable. She may not have admitted it out loud yet, but this very act that some may seem as a strangely inputted sex scene is the exact turning point in her arc. From this point on, she isn't going to let the loyalty to a faction she doesn't really care about dictate her future. From now on, this is a story of redemption, kicked off by her nightmare the next following morning. So on the morning of day 2, we set off on a journey to save Lev and Yara, who on any other day would have been her mortal enemies. However, none of that matters anymore. We can't leave behind the 2 scars that just saved our life. Seraphites, sorry. By every sense of the word, it's the right thing to do. There's an imbalance in herself that needs to be rectified. And when we find Yara on the brink of death, our sole priority shifts to getting her help. From the trek back to the aquarium to the mission to find surgical supplies, a shift starts to take place in Abby's demeanor. Her banter back and forth with Lev changes from skeptical to understanding. Now, in no way has she become a religious convert, but we begin to see that the Seraphites are no less different than any other faction in this world. The deeper search for meaning in an utterly broken world can be handled in many different ways. With violence and order, with simplicity and newfound faith, with community and brotherhood. At the end of the day, we are all, in a sense, lost in looking for the light. This realization pushes Abby even further in her determination, confronting her fear of heights when crossing the sky bridge, to defeating the mid-level boss fight with the Rat King. I know we don't like to admit it, but we as players start to confide in Abby at that point. And it makes sense. Listen, her change is a respectful gesture, regardless of how many out there tend to block it out with the same burning, unrelenting hatred as Ellie. Nevertheless, when we finally make it back to the aquarium, Mel finishes up the surgery and Yara gives Abby that look. Come on. How could you not feel good for Abby at that point? Well, most of us at least. Mel. One can only imagine what it must be like being born in a post-apocalyptic, zombie-infested world. We forget that in part 1, as Joel, the remnants of a normal world looms in our minds like a lost age for civilization. Having this lost age be all you know must be jarring when asked to let it go. So when Owen presents the plan to leave Seattle behind and start fresh in Santa Barbara, Lev lashes out in fear and returns to the island in order to retrieve his mother. Now Yara explains to us that there is no reality in which their mother would ever leave the Seraphite cause, and that Lev returning to their territory would end in certain death. So we leap on one last rescue mission with Yara in an extremely risky campaign to talk sense back into Lev. D3's trip to the island is one of the most cinematic chapters in the game. As we ramble ourselves through scars and woes alike, it never has it become more apparent how badly Abby wants her redemption. Perhaps the saddest realization that comes to mind while playing these 2.5 hours of gameplay is witnessing these two factions that we both know are capable of compassion utterly decimate each other in the name of pure hatred. I mean, even Lev's own mother chooses loyalty to her own ideology over her own flesh and blood, culminating in her accidental death. Like I said before, when this life is all you know, it's more than just jarring to be asked to let it go, especially so abruptly. When Abby and Yara enter the house, we find a broken Lev crushed in the consequences of his actions. But with the help of Yara, we're able to talk him into making the same turning point decision Abby made earlier in her arc, to disband from factionalism and become your own individual again. Therefore, the three make their way through back streets and alleyways hoping to avoid the destruction around them and escape the island forever. However, running from your past is never that easy. After Yara gets shot, Abby shields Lev from the surrounding WLF, probably former friends and comrades. But this time, she's become the other in their eyes. Isaac's presence makes the atmosphere sink into a dark, final boss-style tension. When asked to step aside so that he may kill that Scar, Abby, as scared as we've ever seen her, remains passive yet unwavered in her protection of Lev. It isn't until Yara, with her dying breath, shoots and kills Isaac that we're able to escape, thus officially cutting ties with both the Seraphites and the WLF. When Lev spits at Abby those words, "Those are your fucking people," she fires back that line that made us all fall for Abby just a little more. You're my people. A quasi-proclamation to Lev that he's her new family now, and nothing's going to stop them from getting off this island. Thus, The Last of Us Part 2 suddenly becomes The Last of Us Part 1 told all over again. How two lost souls in an utterly destructive world can find each other and develop an unbreakable bond. So when we finally make our way through the chaos into the boats and begin rowing back to the aquarium, Lev looks back at the fiery remains of his past life in utter disbelief and anguish. What does Abby do? She removes her coat and places it on Lev as a reminder of her newfound love for him. And just like that, the two have broken free from their past lives and can start a new chapter together. That is, until we make it back to the aquarium.
Abby.
Witnessing Abby collapse to the floor in utter pain beside the bodies of Owen and Mel sent a shockwave through me as a player. I mean, these two nobodies, these two enemies that we willingly murdered in cold-blooded revenge as Ellie, suddenly hits harder than anything else in the game. Never before have we felt the consequences of Ellie's actions than just now. And justice needs to be served. Poison courses through her veins as Abby is sent into a spiral of rage akin to the Abby we met in the beginning of the game. Owen couldn't have died for nothing. Bloodlust must ensue. When we finally make it to the theater, the thought of killing our protagonist, let's be honest, it made everybody uncomfortable. But then again, that was the point. You see, Naughty Dog's intention was to make us come to the realization that Ellie is the villain of Abby's world. None of this is right, and we all know it. Hell, Abby probably even knows it if she wasn't so blinded by revenge. Each cut, stab, and punch was enough to make us all collectively scream at the screen, "That's enough, please stop it already." And when we finally get the upper hand, knife at Dina's throat ready to settle the score, Abby is saved. One glance at Lev in the moment was all she needed to come back down to earth and realize the insignificance of her current actions. So obviously a lot of time passes, and the Abby we see in Santa Barbara looks like a newer, healthier version of the little girl we met in the introduction. Fully secure with her vulnerabilities, happy and full of self-confidence, and sharing her days with her new adopted little brother Lev. Parallel to Joel and Ellie, a lot of this trek to find 24-25 constants feels like the hike that Ellie and Joel went on in her flashbacks. The older of the two cracks jokes at the younger one's expense while simultaneously trying to make him smile. The dynamic shared between these two are palpable, especially when Abby's face lights up when she finally connects with the Fireflies via the two-way radio. All is gonna be fine. Oh, wait.
Now.
Yeah, that's right, the whole "this is a broken world" thing. I forgot. Abby and Lev's capture and torture at the hands of the Rattlers is the most cruel act we've seen since those cannibals tried to eat Ellie. They beat, starve, and implement the worst forms of medieval-style torture on them, most likely due to Abby's probable defiance to become their work slave. However, this time she wasn't able to fight her way to freedom, and all could have been lost, if not for a familiar face showing up at the last time to cut her down from the pillars. Ellie's final scene where she parts from Joel's guitar and sets off on another adventure is the ultimate cliffhanger moment. Cue the end with a question mark as the credits begin to roll. Fans, players, and onlookers alike are left with an uneasy feeling towards the franchise's most beloved character. Where will she go? Will she ever be able to make up with Dina? Will she ever be able to forgive herself? I mean, these are questions that hover over everybody's mind in an unsatisfying manner. Don't believe me? Just go read the reviews. Bruh. But you see, where Ellie is still searching for her meaning, her purpose, her Lev to Abby, her Joel to herself, it is absolutely certain that her journey has not been completed just yet. And I get it, it sits differently for a lot of players, but one thing is for sure, her arc has only just begun to peak. Her turning point has yet to be determined, which no doubtably will be the crux of The Last of Us Part 3. Nonetheless, when the credits begin to roll and Gustavo Santaolalla's guitar picks those oh so haunting chords, we are left with just one character whose story is concluded, or at least for now. And that, Your Honor, is my defendant, Abby Anderson. Oftentimes in media, fans and consumers alike are used to the satisfaction of understanding the battle between good versus evil. However, sometimes the most brilliant of artistic mediums blur those lines to make us question our own morality. That old saying, history is written by the winners, is, in a way, a poetic attempt at saying that there are two sides to every story. The Last of Us Part 1, but Part 2 substantially more so, begs us to step out of our comfort zone and take a look at this battle from both perspectives. And sure, that may be hard, especially when one of those perspectives is from the killer of our beloved Joel, but that's the point Neil Druckmann and Haley Gross are trying to convey. True perspective isn't an easy thing to accomplish, especially when emotions run so deep. Abby is hated by most of the community simply because seeing her side is too much for us. Dare I say some might even find it too realistic? Now sure, that might sound silly talking about a game set in a zombie apocalypse, but we're talking about emotionally here. That if we wanted our heartstrings tugged so hard, we would just spend our days in a funeral home or watching unfiltered Vietnam War footage. And if that's the case for you, then fine. Maybe this game wasn't for you. But for those of us who enjoy emotional roller coasters or occasionally stepping out of our comfort zone, then there really isn't a better story that could have been told. But also, maybe the hatred driven towards Abby isn't so much that many can't just remove the blinders of hate and see her as anything but the bad guy, but that it wasn't fair for her to have her arc completed instead of Ellie's. Either may be true, but then again, this story may not be over. If Part 3 ever drops, and trust me, I'm really rooting for it, we get the conclusion to Ellie's arc that fans are so salivating for. Then maybe, just maybe, fans on the other side of the aisle will begin to appreciate what we all saw from a little girl from Salt Lake. A loving woman, temporarily lost in vengeance just to be saved at the last minute by a higher purpose. And that, my friends, is something to admire. Case rested. Was it case closed? I don't know. I'm a terrible lawyer. Anyway, guys, thanks for tuning into my video, man. If you made it this long, thank you so much. Please like and subscribe if you like what you heard. I know everybody says it at the end of these videos, but it would really mean the world to me. I'm trying to really make this my at least part-time career, and I know the videos aren't the best quality. I'm trying to buy new equipment every week and at least drop a video a week for your entertainment. And if I could continue doing so, it would be fantastic. So, thanks again, and yeah, take care, guys. Peace out.